cervical region is 8. It's all on here, so you don't have to write it down yet. In the brachial region is, not brachial region, I'm sorry, the thoracic region is 12, and the sacral lumbar region is 5, and the sacral region is 5 pairs of nerves, and then coccygeal, like I said, is 1. You do have to know these plexuses. The nerves come out and then they form these groups of nerves, and the one that stands out the most is this brachial plexus right here. But you have to know the cervical plexus, the brachial plexus. You have and it shows it on the figure here as well, the regions in the plexuses. So you have the lumbar plexus and the sacral plexus. You have 4 plexuses. And that same thing on here, you see this central canal, but you also see the little cone shape there, the medullaris, conus medullaris, and then this part that looks like a horse's tail, the cauda equinus. You can see the plexuses and you can see the regions there as well. The only thing that you can see on here that you can't see on there is called the terminal phylum. That's that little tiny end nerve right there. Phylum, terminal, the terminal part. Okay, so that's not too much stuff on there. This, everybody needs to listen to carefully because you'll get mixed, you'll get confused. Don't write or anything. There's 3 different models of the cross-section of a spinal column. This is the basic one, okay? This is basically, what this is here is just a flat one, and this is just taking it out, okay? Let's just take the pictures afterwards. I don't want to do any pictures.
No, you're not on the picture.
So this is just 2 of the same thing, okay? So this is just your basic spinal column without the vertebrae, and it's got your gray matter and your white matter and your roots, the nerves coming out of the spinal cord. And if you look at this, we're not going to go to the parts just yet, but if you look at this, it is the same thing that's in here. See? Okay? So this, if you know this, you're going to know most of the parts for here. Okay? And you'll know most of the parts for this, because that's the same thing too in here. This is the spinal cord and the nerve roots going out here. We'll talk about the other structures in a minute. So let's take a look at this one again. And the keys are all here. But basically, this is the spinal column if you're going to cut a cross-section. The butterfly shape, don't put on the final. If I have a pointer to something here, gray matter. You need to know if I put a pointer here, this, and this is the anterior part, this is dorsal. This is the anterior dorsal. So the little butterfly shapes on the top or the back, those are the dorsal horns. These are the anterior horns. And some of them have these little side horns that are the lateral horns. Okay? Now, coming off of the dorsal horns, you can call posterior horns, or it doesn't matter, but I try to stay consistent with dorsal. Dorsal horns, you have the nerves that are called the dorsal roots. Okay? And then it comes to this bulbous area, which is the dorsal root ganglion, right there. Now, coming off of, and it's the same thing on that side, mirror image. Right here is your anterior horn. Coming out of your anterior horn or ventral horn is your ventral roots, and that's it. It doesn't go to a ganglion, it just meets. Right in the middle, like I showed you over there, but you do this cross-section, is your central canal. If you go to see this cleavage area right here, that's anterior. It's your anterior medium fissure. This is your posterior medium sulcus, anterior and posterior. This one is a larger space than the one in the back. Okay, the same thing here. You're going to see the same things, okay, right? dorsal horns, dorsal roots. This ganglion's a little bigger, in there, it's in yellow. See the big dorsal root ganglion? Anterior, and it shows it just the ventral horn or anterior horn. You see the ventral root coming out from underneath there. Lateral, central horn, anterior, posterior, fissures and sulcus. Now, what's different about this one is what? It has a, what is it, what's surrounding this? A vertebrae. Remember I said this one has a vertebrae. So, the things that you have to know about this is the back, so that's the posterior. Things you need to know in here is that between the vertebrae and your meninges is this epidural space. It's this tan area. Okay, epidural space. Then the first great beige area you see is the most outermost meninges, which is the dura matter. Then the next one, which you can see if you're close, is the arachnoid matter. The space in between here is the subarachnoid space. I didn't tell you that. It's up on the board. Subarachnoid space is where your CSF is stored. No, that is cerebral spinal fluid. And then the one that's nicely, delicately surrounding the spinal cord here is your pia matter. Okay, so there were 4 additional things you needed to know on the vertebrae one. This is just an older model of a cross-section. So I'm not going to go through everything, but just like this, here's your central canal, you know, these things, your dorsal root, dorsal horn, your dorsal root, your dorsal root ganglion. Here, it's nicer to see, you don't see any epidural space because there's no vertebrae. But this blue area here, the outermost thing, is your dura. I'm going to abbreviate, I'm not going to say matter. The dura. Now, arachnoid is this gray area. Arachnoid, like arachnophobia, means spider. So it is very web-like, all this white. And that's when we do the brain dissection, you will maybe see some of this web-like stuff that's on the inside of the dura matter, which is the arachnoid matter. This black area here and all the empty space is the subarachnoid space, which is filled with CSF. And then just that one that's circling it, that layer, white layer there, is your pia. So there's 3 additional things on this thing, which are basically, these 2 things are basically identical in terms of the number of terms you need to know, except this has an additional epidural space. Otherwise, you know, there's 3 extra words here. Okay, there's 4 extra words here, and 3 extra words here, but they're the, you know, 1 extra from this. You get what I mean. So it's very simple. If you understood that concept, what I just told you, should be very simple for you to know. Because I might put all 3 of these on the final. I might put 2 of them. You have to know them all. Okay? And let's go to the slides now. I have some pictures of them. The neuron model, the multi-neuron